Hello and welcome to Revit in Motion. Today we are going to create a sheet template or title block for our Revit drawings. Since the title block is the first thing that most people see on our drawings and help us get everything organized in our paper cabinet, I think this is a fairly important topic. Title blocks display the information that you need. Who drew it, what's the project name, what's on the sheet, and everybody has a slightly different idea of what they want to put on there. So in this session we are actually going to focus on the paper size so we can easily adapt that to the needs that we have, and in the next session we are going to focus on creating the title block itself with all the information that we need. We're going to link this to the paper size that we've just created. We're going to put the revisions in there and all that kind of jazz. But for now we're going to focus on the proper paper size that we want. Right, paper size. What's paper size? Well, paper size, I have a very nice picture here. Paper size, when you're based on the metric system, is usually measured in based on the ISO 216, which basically states that we are starting out with a square meter of paper, and the ratio of the short side to the long side is 1 to the square root of 2. Sounds a bit mathematical, but it's actually fairly simple. And then A1 is half A0, A2 is half A1, A3 is half A2, and so on and so forth. Actually, you get bigger sizes as well. But we're not going to worry about those today. Right. So, paper size, I went to Wikipedia and looked it up. And actually what you see here is, again, the drawing, just not as nicely 3D as that earlier one, with the connection to the imperial system, the legal and the letter, that are probably better known in the US. And you can see that A4, that's the metric equivalent, sort of, is just right in the middle of it. If you are interested in the ISO 216, you can look it up on Wikipedia. It's quite interesting actually to see how that was developed and all that kind of stuff. What we are going to need is, well, first of all, we're going to make a little plan so we can get our family rolling on the right amount. So, for the size of our title sheet, what do we want? Well, we're going to base it on the ISO 216, right? So that's the idea. And the nice thing, again, is that you have these numbers, and the number really corresponds with the size of the paper. You don't need your user to remember, well, this is 841 millimeters and this is 1189. They don't need to remember this, and even more important is they shouldn't need to remember this, because you sometimes they just remember it wrong, and then your paper size are just off a little bit, and it's not as professional as we would want. So we're actually going to limit the input of the user to this number, to the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3, and so forth. So we're going to limit user input to the number, A0, A1, and so forth. Even though it's not widely used anymore, we are going to make it an option to have landscape or portrait. And I want I want one side to be able to be extended by increments of 210 millimeters. That's something that we've, in my company, experienced trouble with our plotter and our folding machine. And after much experimentation, we found out that it's easiest if we just extend it by 210 millimeters. Why 210 millimeters? Well, again, if you look at the paper size illustration here, 210 is the width of an A4 paper, and actually when you fold it, it's going to the fold Yeah, it's going to be this size, right? So everything's folded into or under the 210 by 297. And so I want the drawing to be extendable by 200 increments. Extendable by 210 millimeter increments. Right, so that's our plan for today. I always find it very interesting or very important to make a plan of what you actually want to do. Right, so we're gonna switch over to Revit, and I've actually created a new I want to save it. Right, yeah, new family, and then I just use the title block, the new metric size. Right, so here we are with our title sheet, and we don't have anything here yet. First, we're going to add a parameter, which is going to be our size, and that's going to be the integer of the number, and that's the general setting. Why size? Well, it's short, and we're going to use that in a couple of formulas. Later on, you can change this name to ISO 216 size or number A or something, or you can just make an explanation behind it or whatever, but for now we're just going to do this. And we're going to do a portrait. Yeah. And that's going to be, I guess, no in the general section. Again, this is going to be our, is it a portrait, is it lying flat, or is it lying, or is it standing up? And we're going to make a new family type. We'll call this A0 portrait. Alright, so this is going to be, we're going to make it A0 and it's portrait, so that's what it is. Okay, now we need to find out how to calculate the long sides and the short sides. Luckily, we have Wikipedia. And if you look into the German explanation of this whole thing, because the ISO 216 is based on the German DIN system, somebody went to the lengths and found out how to calculate the long one and the short side of these of the paper size. And actually, the formula that we're going to use is going to be this one. They're all equal, but I find that this one is fairly easy to use. Important to note is that it's going to be meters, right? So we're actually going to need millimeters, so whatever we calculate here we need to multiply by 1000. So we're actually going to do this. We're going to add an integer, and I'll tell you a little bit later why. That's going to be calculated alongside. Okay. Calculate alongside, that's going to be square root of 2 to the power of a half minus n, and where n is the number. So this is going to be square roots, SQRT, of 2 to the power, where's the power? Power of 0.5 minus size times 1000. And here we get a number, which is 1189, and 1189 millimeters is actually the long side of A0, so that works. We need the second one, the short side, is going to be negative a half minus n, so we're going to put that in as well. Calculated short side is going to be an integer as well, and grouped in other. Alright. Square root of 2 to the power of negative 0.5 minus size times 1000. And we put the parentheses around here just to make it easier readable later on. Right, 841 is the short side of this. So now what we could do is just add a parameter, and which is actually going to be length. We're going to put that in dimension, the width, And for now, we're just going to make that there, because since it's portrait, it's going to be calc long times 1 millimeter, because this one does not have a unit, and it needs a unit because it's a length. And we're going to put in the height. Alright, and that's going to be calc short. Times 1 millimeter. Okay, well, that works fine. So now we have this, but this doesn't work yet. And let's see if this works. Well, it's actually going to change it, but, and here we're running into a little trouble that the ISO 216 has. Mathematically correct would be this, 841 by 595. But if we look into the table, it's actually A1 is actually 594 by 841. And why is that? Well, if we add 10 to this calculation, we actually see that the 9, whenever it's a 9, as after the digit, they're actually going to round it up, and anything else gets rounded down. So 420 by 490 is 494. That is correct. But right, so this is it just needs to get rounded down. And this is actually going to be a little bit tricky, but what we are going to do is we're going to add 1 to this. So the trick that we're going to use is we're going to add 1, so anytime the last digit is a 9, it's going to actually be a 10 or whatever, but the other last ones are not going to change much, so it's going to be 6 or 7, doesn't really matter. And what we're then going to do is we're just going to cut this off. So basically we're going to divide it by 10 and round it down, which is we're going to do this here, round down this divided by 10 times 1 millimeter. There you go. And this we're actually also going to do divide by 10. Now round down is a new formula that was introduced in Revit 2012, which, as the name states, rounds everything down. So if you make a calculation, it will automatically round it down. And now we see that we actually did get the 594 that we wanted, but the 841 is still valid. So let's quickly walk through this. 1189 by 841, we already checked this. A0 works, A1 and A2. 594 by 420. Well, if you look in the list, 594 by 420. And let's go back to A3. It's another common paper size, 297 by 420. That is correct as well. And 210 by 297 is also correct. So it actually works. Now the last thing that we need to do is there's two things that we want to do. Still, the first thing is the portrait or the landscape. Well, that's the easy thing. The simple formula is if portrait is true, then the width is actually going to be the long side. Otherwise, I'm just gonna take this, copy, paste. It's going to be the short side. So 1189, it's 841. There we go. So that works. And we're just going to do the same thing if portrait. And if you need to look it up, the help file is actually, the Revit help is actually quite good at explaining how the if works. But basically it does this if, and then if this is true, then use the first one, otherwise use the second one. I'm going to paste that one, so if portrait is true, the height is the short side, otherwise the height is the long side. and see how nicely it flips over. Right, last thing we wanted to do was let me check the list. So we've done that. Yeah, check. Put a plus behind it. Limit, that is check. That works. And now we just wanted to have it extendable by increments. Well, that is the easiest thing to do. Increase, or I'm just going to put it extra. Put this in an integer and group this by general. And again, you can change the name later. I'm just gonna put that here, and we're just gonna add to the width plus extra. Just put that in parentheses, extra times 210 millimeters. Now we have this. If we have extra 1, it's just gonna add them. And if I flip it over, yeah, that works as well. Alright, so now we have our family working. We're gonna say OK. And we're just gonna add this as the width. Whoops, okay. There you go. And this as height. And we have a working system. This, make it a 2. Okay. And it's a lot smaller. Right, these are the dimensions, and this is the paper size. So, seems to work just fine. Next week, or next time, we are actually going to create the title block. We're gonna mess around with this just slightly more, because what we're actually going to do is we're going to make an anchor point at the bottom left of the page where the title block is going to go, and anchor the dimensions to this instead of to the drawing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this and found it informative, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll have a look at them once in a while. Good luck with this, and we'll see you next time.